centuries, mankind has been fascinated with realms outside of our conscious awareness. Through a series of interviews with practitioners, guest speakers, and experts, Liberate the Podcast covers all that and more. From health and holistic healing to the supernatural, we aim to educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi, and welcome to another episode of Liberate the Podcast. Today, we're welcoming back Carisa. I think if those that listened to the last episode that we had her on, we're meant to talk about the divine feminine, kind of went into the deep on the shadow work, but Carisa's going to explain a little bit about why they're tied together and going and diving a little bit deeper into that divine feminine. So let's welcome back Carisa. For those that this might be the first episode hearing, she's a multifaceted healer, practitioner, wealth of knowledge, amazing musician, talented in so many different facets and ways, and has really spent her whole entire life diving in deep into all of the mythic realms of consciousness and unconsciousness, I guess we could say, right? So Carisa, just share a little bit more about yourself again, and then we'll be diving back in.
Thanks for having me back. It's always really fun to talk to you about this stuff. I have been working with mythology and shadow work and Jungian psychology and Reiki. I'm a Reiki master too, actually. I always forget to mention. I've been working on all of that stuff for about 20 years. Probably a little bit more, but just means that I'm getting older. I do a couple of nights here a month. I do a women's group that's called the Hathor night. Hathor is the goddess. She's an Egyptian goddess of women and music and creativity. And I do another night called Mysteries of the Dark Divine, and that night is also focused on inner work and shadow work, which we spoke about last time. We talked a lot about shadow work and the way that relates to the divine feminine is that all of the aspects of the divine feminine are the introspective aspects and the internal aspects, and whenever we do inner work, that's the stuff of the divine feminine. We could have 200,000 possessions, we could have 300, we could have 1 million possessions each, and there's still more than enough to go around. The idea that there's not enough to go around really just fuels this kind of the hoarding thing that you're talking about, and that feeling of grabbing onto everything.
And I think that's where, that whole consciousness of I need this and I need to store this and hold this, and it creates this war and friction because I want what they have or they can't touch what I have, or I'm special because I own this, or whatever the case may be. But it's a very much, I feel, poverty consciousness, element. Yeah. And because then putting a value on things, because the value on things is because this is a limited edition, or because only so many people drive this car or have this. But if it's abundant thinking, then anybody can have that or do that. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, the thing is, it's just that there's more than enough for everyone in every capacity. It's not just possessions, it's emotions, it's success. It's in every area we tend to hoard. We tend to want what somebody else has. We want their relationship. We want their opportunities. We want their, ideas. It's there's always a sense that there's not enough. There's not enough approval. There's not enough love. There's not enough, it's not just in a material world that poverty consciousness exists now. It's really, really just prevalent everywhere. And, the thing about there not being enough is it does affect the material aspects, and it does end up breeding kind of a certain attitude about materialism and money, that it's bad, and then it creates this kind of shadow dynamic in the material world where people are doing atrocious things for money and where there's not enough to go around. So
Yeah.
The problems with money and materialism, they stem from the same aspects of suppression of the goddess. Because the goddess says there's more than enough for everyone. The sun doesn't stop shining, it doesn't stop raining, it doesn't stop. The earth produces and produces and produces. I mean, we'll be gone before the earth is gone. So, there's a sense of that earth aspect that's suppressed when we come into materialism with that kind of poverty consciousness. Yeah. But, the goddess exists in the earth, and the environmental, I don't know what to call it, suppression, the environmental problem is also another aspect of suppressing the feminine. I mean, even just animal cruelty. I mean, what's happening to our food? Our food source is poisoned with, genetic modification and all of this, all of these chemicals. It's like the food source, the water is not good, with all the chemicals that are put into everything. It's just, it's a contamination of the earth. And the earth, of course, is the feminine. And that kind of level of contamination is also another aspect, of what happens when the feminine is suppressed. And then not to mention all the extreme weather problems and the issues with the ozone layer and the issues with the oceans and the issues with, everything else, all the other environmental problems that we've created because there's no respect for the feminine aspect being the earth.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things are done in the name of money, which is just, again, massive amounts of poverty consciousness. The earth says there's more than enough.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's a suppression of the earth when you say, no, there's not more than enough, you know?
And I don't even think that it's done for, like, when we look at it on a bigger level, money per se, it's done for the fact that they feel that there's a lack or a limited supply of money, right? Because, if money's just energy and feminine energy and earth energy, like you're saying, yes, it's done because they're of greed, but it's what is the cause of it? Greed, power, corruption, whatever the case may be. But I need more of this. Yeah. And that lack thinking that's kind of creating, let me go in and take all this or do all this or build all this or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
And there's injury there. There's just massive injury there. And that feminine suppression, it works to suppress the other internal aspects as well as the global aspects. So on an internal level, we have emotional suppression, and we have a lot of illness that gets created because of emotional suppression and stuff like that. Even cancer can be related to that, as well as, GMOs and stuff like that.
So that kind of ties into what we were talking about. Not accepting you or suppressing those types of emotions within you.
We've had a culture for the last couple of thousand years. It's been a very, very feminine suppressed culture for the last couple of thousand years. From the sexuality getting suppressed, it's been, we can see it as religion. I mean, it's pretty obvious as religion. People being told don't have any money, take a vow of poverty, while the Vatican itself becomes able to feed the world 7 times over just in its basement alone. People have been told, only the poor get into heaven. And meanwhile, the institutions telling people that are like hoarding all the gold. So there's been a power corruption thing that's been in place there, as well as suppression of the sexuality, a suppression of emotion, and people being told emotion in general is bad. Boys don't cry, and a woman crying isn't a hysterical woman. And, there's been a suppression of emotion in general, and a lot of the religions have gone towards kind of neutralizing emotion. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's been a strong embracing of intellectualism and science, And there's nothing wrong with that either. Those things are necessary. They need to be tempered or balanced with the feminine. They need to be balanced with the emotional and the intuitive and the inner knowing. This is the thing about the feminine. The masculine may be science. It may be intellectualism. It may be the attainment of knowledge. And we can classify that as masculine energy. Now, all of us need that. All of us need the attainment of knowledge. We need our intellect to be sharp. We need to be able to separate ourselves from our emotions enough to not just react to everything all the time, just so that we have an understanding of our feelings. These are really good things. But the thing is that in order to actually have a knowing, in order to actually know God, goddess, in order to actually have a sense of the divine, these are not intellectual things.
Yeah.
These are purely emotional things. This is a different type of knowing. This is the feminine knowing. It's the feminine that gives us the sense of unity. Like the ocean.
And understanding of thyself, right?
It's understanding of the self through feeling.
Yes.
It's all feeling. The intellect gives us an ability to give it words and to give it some kind of meaning, I guess, in a way, in a certain way. But really, the feeling gives it a completely different meaning. It gives it the meaning that there's intellectual meaning, and then there's meaning. Yeah. There's the meaning that you sense when something is powerful or important or speaking to you on a different level. And that deeper meaning is the feminine meaning, and that comes through emotion, that comes through connection with emotion, that comes through connection with the inner world. It comes through connection with the heart, you can't bypass the lower chakras. You can't bypass the sacral chakra, that contains all of our emotional selves. You can't bypass the inner self and then expect to have divine knowledge.
Yeah.
There's a part of you that's in the dark, always ready to be triggered. You might be able to keep that divine knowledge intact if you live in a cave or on the top of a mountain, but this is about integrating divine knowledge into everyday life. This is about integrating divine knowledge into the pits, If you can keep a spiritual sense of truth and peace and love, ultimately love, in the middle of chaos, in the middle of, like Jesus did, being slapped on one cheek and offering his other cheek, if you can keep a sense of unity, consciousness, and love in life, when you're paying the bills, when someone screams at you on the road, in life, then you have some spiritual power there.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from anyone can attain it if they stay on a mountain long enough.
Yeah.
It's our divine nature. If we get rid of all the distractions from our divine nature, then it's easy, But when you bring that energy back into the world where it's needed, that's what it's all about. And the feminine gives you the feeling of unity consciousness. The shadow work takes you there.
Yeah.
The shadow work helps you to have that love, acceptance, and forgiveness for everybody, so that then you can bring that unity consciousness home. So then you can see the deeper meaning when something terrible happens.
Yeah. When
you can actually surrender to great mystery and the divine.
So what you're really saying, it's about, we've been so out of balance. That the highlight of this isn't that the masculine is bad or wrong.
No, yeah.
It's about how can we really start paying attention more to the feminine, because it's been ignored.
Exactly. And this has been ignored not just for men, it's been ignored for women. Women are equal parties in this entire suppression,
Yeah.
Women themselves have been suppressed, and we can see that easily, and a lot of history has been changed so that women have been, left out of it. But the thing is that, you know, I'm an artist and I see the competition that lies between artists, and I feel that that's probably there in every area of work.
Yeah.
You know, where women feel like they have to compete against each other because of the amount of suppression that there's been.
Yeah.
And so women also, you know, I know that there are women that will prefer to work with a male engineer, as though men, for whatever reason, can engineer music better than a female could engineer music, which is absolutely insane.
Yeah.
And something to just emphasize how insane that is to state that the first computer programs ever built was built by a woman in 1840, I think 1841.
Wow.
And so all of the computer equipment that's used to engineer music and engineer pretty much everything, that was all created by a woman. Right? So the idea of this, you know, this kind of, we all have to shift our consciousness, basically.
Yeah.
We all have to shift our consciousness about the way we look at women and women's places, and we all have to, women have to come to a place where we embrace abundance consciousness and realize that there's more than enough for everyone now.
Yeah.
And that by supporting each other, we support ourselves. And the other aspect of supporting each other is when you support another, you recognize what's unique about you. Nobody can replace us. We are irreplaceable. Every single person is totally unique unto themselves.
Yeah, and then you're getting into, I feel like, the male mindset is a competition mindset. Not male as far as the genetic makeup, but like male energy.
Masculine is active.
You know, active.
Winning. It's winning.
And women is more about collaboration.
It's unity. Unity consciousness again.
We kind of need a shift from this competition mindset to this collaboration mindset.
Exactly, yeah. And the thing is that all of us need to do it. All of us, you know, men, women alike. This is an energy suppression, and that's happening, not just gender suppression here.
Yeah.
All of us suffer. I mean, when we eat poison food, does it matter if we're a man or a woman?
No.
You know, if the earth doesn't, like, you know, kicks us off it, you know, with natural disasters because we've messed with it so much, is that a masculine and feminine?
Yeah,
No,
and men just as equally as women suppressing their emotions is causing, you know, disease within the body.
Exactly.
So I mean, it doesn't matter.
This body emotion thing, the going within, the going towards the dark, the idea that wearing black is dark. I have always worn black as a very sacred color for me. I mean, I did get brought up Catholic where everyone who's sacred wears black, so maybe that's the subconscious thing I took on from that. But black is the color of the feminine. It's the void. It's great mystery. It's the receptive. And it is the principle of the goddess. It's the principle of the night. So, you know, the idea that, you know, dark and the term, you know, dark has evil attached to it, which is ridiculous, or like black has evil attached to it, which is also ridiculous. These are all signs of imbalance, like massive imbalance.
Yeah.
So
what can people do? Like, you know, like, because I mean, a lot of the things that you're talking about, I think they're probably most people would agree with a lot of the statements, but they're very large.
Yeah,
right?
they are.
Like,
they definitely
so
are.
what is something that somebody can do in their personal life to bring upon more balance of the feminine energy within their life?
The beauty is that we have archetypes of femininity available to us everywhere. We have archetypes of the feminine. Oh my gosh, it's really just the presence of okay, I'm going to talk about Mary.
Okay.
There are divine aspects, archetypes of the feminine available to everyone. We've got Hathor, like I do in the Hathor night on Monday nights, and there are other aspects. There's Kali, who breaks us of our ego restraints and liberates. She's the great liberator because she helps us to liberate ourselves from the ego and heal the shadow. She destroys the inner demons, and there's Kuan Yin, who is, the healer, and she's the compassionate healer. And there is a lot of different, there's Shakti, the primal creative force, and Lakshmi, the abundance, the force of abundance. Okay, now that I've said Lakshmi, I have to just say something. Shakti is a Hindu goddess, and she is the creative goddess. And she splits herself into 3 different identities. She splits herself into Lakshmi. Lakshmi is the goddess of abundance. This is just emphasizing once again the ways that the feminine is abundance. Lakshmi is abundance, consciousness, and beauty. She's that aspect of the goddess. Then there is Sarasvati. She is the one that brings inspiration. She brings inspiration to artists, to scientists, to creators of all sorts. So she is the one that is connected to the river, the flow. She's connected to the water and the flow of that. So she's that aspect of the goddess. So that you see the creative impetus that's there with the divine goddess. Then there is Durga. And Durga is the one that is the protector. She has a tiger with her, and she is fierce and strong and kind of a warrior. And protective. She's a protective warrior. That is an aspect of the goddess too. It's a common aspect of the goddess to be the warrior and the protector. And she has within her Kali, came from an aspect of Durga. And Kali is the dark mother, the dark mother that comes in the dark of the womb, right at the beginning of the menstrual cycle, when the moon is gone from the sky, Kali comes, and she is the one that makes us face our shadow, the thing that we're most afraid to face, and she makes us embrace it and love and heal our shadow. And what she does is she represents the liberation from time and space. Time and space is the ego, where I am here now, in this room now. And that's the container, and she's the liberator from the ego. She reminds us that we are everything and to not attach ourselves to these ego things. And so she fights the demon, But these are aspects of the Hinduism and the pantheon that's there. But, Hathor turns into a lion too, Sekhmet. She's this lovely, kind of a sexual goddess of beauty and creativity, and she offers us these creative gifts as well with music and dance. But she also turns into a lion, Sekhmet, and she's actually thought to be the Sphinx in Egypt. And so she is she works like that too. I'm going to talk about Mary, because Mary is a figure that appears all over the world. She's the most manifested figure, I think, in the world. She's a figure that is often becoming visible to people through miracles. Mary is, in the old times, the word virgin meant you were not married and you weren't, bound to somebody else. It didn't have anything to do with sex. So she is the unmarried. She's the force unto herself. She's not half of a whole. She's a force unto herself, the primal force of the mother. And archetypally speaking, she gives birth to the divine child. And we are all the divine child. We are her divine children. And so Mary is this force. She's really such a beautiful representation of the divine mother. She took different forms before. She took the form of Mary as, as that religious, identification, or mythological identification came up. But you know, the Divine Mother has always been there. You can find statues of the Divine Mother as far back as you can find statues of human, you know, beings existing.
Yeah.
So the Divine Mother has always been present. And today she's represented very widely through Mary, through the image of Mary. She's definitely not bound to that identity on any level.
Yeah.
But it's one that speaks to our time. And she is just the absolute embodiment of nurturance and love. You know, people turn to Mary when they're at their wits' end, when they're just bowing down to the divine and asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
They turn to Mary and they, you know, say, please. And Mary comes and says, I am your mother. Like, I am the force of love and light, and I am the force of nurturance. And Mary comes and presents herself to you. I talk about these archetypes because this is how we connect to the divine.
Okay.
We connect to the divine. We are archetypal, symbolic creatures. When we go to sleep and we dream in archetypes.
Yeah.
The language of our unconscious is archetypal. The language of our inner self, the self that we base things on, is archetypal. Most of the time, we don't even think we can do something unless we've seen an example of it somewhere before. Because we're archetypal, we need that archetype of that type of hero, or that type of liberator, or that type of trickster, or that type of whatever, to present itself to us so that we have the inspiration to become our own type of embodiment of that archetype.
Yeah.
So we are archetypal, symbolic, archetypal creatures. And the archetypes that have been dominant in our culture, they come from celebrities, they come from politicians, they come from, actors, they come from films. So here's a powerful thing. When you see Luke Skywalker, right, and he becomes the archetypal symbolic archetype of the hero,
mm-hmm.
right? And then how many millions upon millions find courage because of Luke Skywalker? You know,
yeah.
Because there's an internal archetypal structure that it's speaking to, which is the hero's journey. And so what happens when most of those archetypes are men? We don't get to have any archetypal relationship with the divine feminine.
Yeah.
And look at, most politicians are men. Celebrities get paid more than women, the males. The men are always the heroes. Do you know that they did a study and found that women don't even talk to each other a lot of the times in television shows unless they're talking about a male? It's a really common thing. And so they don't have meaningful dialogues with each other in a lot of shows, in a lot of circumstances. Not all of them by any means. But it's just this common thing that happens. And so there is this prevalence of male archetypes out there that you can take your pick. You can go, okay, Michael Jackson, Prince, David Bowie. You can say, Luke Skywalker, Batman. I don't know. There's a lot. There's a lot of those. Now you can see in recent history they're starting to allow more of the feminine archetypes to come out, because there's been just as many significant and empowered women as there has been men. They've just been omitted from history, like us not knowing that a woman is the one that created computer programming.
Yeah.
So they've just been omitted from history. So what we can do, or what we must do, is we need to create new archetypes. We need new archetypes. Not new archetypes, there's plenty of old ones actually there. We need to actually start connecting with, looking back at history, Googling women in history, powerful women in history. Every one that you look at is going to change your internal structure.
Okay.
Looking at images of the Divine Mother, of the Divine Feminine, there are an abundance of female divine, like there are an abundance of deities that personify the divine feminine. Having a relationship with those allows us to start rebuilding that.
Okay, so
putting it in art. Art is where it needs to be happening.
So having where you can relate to an iconic female role model in a sense, in a way, and looking at the powerful women that have been is one form of entering or having this energy start to shift into your archetypal unconscious mind, and then like you were saying before, like with the other episode, is doing some shadow work on your emotions.
Right, of course, doing shadow work and inner work like that is really powerful.
And shifting your abundance consciousness would be another form, right?
Yeah. Any time that you work on anything to do with healing the feminine, working on your sexuality, loving and owning your sexuality, making people aware of like what the clitoris is. I mean, these all seem like silly things, but they're really important because they are just rebalancing the mind of the collective and rebalancing our own personal mind. When Buffy the Vampire Slayer started to air, the studies that they did on women's dreams leading up to Buffy coming on television, women would have dreams, and in their dreams they would be attacked and killed. And women were just always being demolished in their dreams. After Buffy the Vampire Slayer, they did studies on women that watched Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and in their dreams they would all fight, and they would all kill the dark things in their dreams. Like,
interesting.
Yeah, and you know what? They didn't have to do any shadow work. They just had to change their symbolic, archetypal relationships with the world. That's what had to happen. They needed a new archetypal force. This is the power that art has. Art does this. This is what art does. That's why Luke Skywalker. So the moment that they made Rey, the character of Rey, I saw a little girl, a little 5-year-old girl, wearing a tutu, running around with a pink lightsaber. Like for Rey, because they made a female Jedi.
Yeah.
And so they just, by doing that, they changed millions upon millions of new generations of women. And you know what? None of those women are going to know that they were changed because of that.
Yeah. It gave them, like you said, like if you can see
now you have a new archetype.
You can adapt that and pull that into your own self and your own identity.
Exactly.
And so I think that, like, at least that's the light bulbs are going off in my head, and maybe the people that are listening, about how the power of even just perception and seeing and knowing and believing can shift your own. And then that kind of goes into, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is the 100th monkey syndrome, where the zoologists were studying different monkeys, and but it just proved the dynamic of the collective
unconscious. Yeah, it's exactly that. And it's, we internalize these images when we watch TV, or when we do art, or even listen to music. When we do this, we actually go into our feminine mind. We actually get really close to like the theta state. That's why we can get sucked into television so easily.
Yeah.
Because we go into the passive state. So when we are reviewing like archetypes on this level, it's actually changing our unconscious. It's actually changing us fundamentally. It's changing what we believe is possible for us in the future. It's changing the way we relate to others. It's changing us. It's basically creating, art has always been the thing that has dominated human culture. People learn how to behave with each other through story, through whether it's books or stories, or the storyteller used to do it. And there's been all sorts of ways that art has passed on these archetypes. All of these myths come from art, and they all are aspects of our consciousness that we live in, that by looking, art is what Joseph Campbell and myths are what Joseph Campbell calls the dreams of God. So when you change the dreams of God, when you interject into the dream of God these new archetypal features, you change God, goddess / goddess, God being unisex term. You change creation. You change yourself.
Yeah.
And you know, you just need to look at art and see how it just formed every single phase of culture that has ever been since the beginning of time. It's taught us morals, it teaches us how to be, it teaches us what we're capable of, it teaches us how to be a hero, it teaches us about how to relate to the world around us.
I love that.
And so how can we heal this? By exposing ourselves to art and connecting to this feminine force around us. It's going to just by default change us, just by connecting to that feminine voice, that feminine story. That J.J. Abrams did a huge thing by making the Jedi a female. Like, I mean, I take it as an archetypal thing. I couldn't stop crying, and I don't think I can still stop crying because it was such a power. I know the consequence of that move.
Yeah.
Because I know the consequence of that move. It's powerful.
So those that are listening, if you're, you know, to take an extra step back when you're creating things and doing things, and whether you're in a creative you know, field of entertainment or whatnot, or whether even just in your own personal life, if you can be, I think you can be that archetype for the little girl or the little boy that lives down the street by being and stepping into your power.
Yes, exactly.
And your voice, whether you're male, female, whatnot, and exhibiting
and
these,
helping others' powers. Like, and if you're a woman, helping, you know, to support it, and if you're a male, helping women.
Yeah. And I think that can be, you know, it can be done on the big screens or through music and those kind of things, but it can be just as well done in your daily life. Exactly. And through an interaction at a store or you know, whatever the case may be. So don't ever hesitate or stop and think that if you're not creating something big, you're not creating a difference, because everything that you matters.
Do. Yeah, and you know, and to bring it into your life and into your world and to people around you as well. Just bring in images, examples, facets of that divine feminine into your world. Beautify yourself, your home. You know, give that beauty to others. Put up images of Mary. I know it sounds crazy. Mary is a force. If you look online of divine miracles, like millions of people have seen manifestations of Mary. There is something that you can look at, Mary of Zeiton, Zeiton, and millions of people saw this image of Mary. I think it was 68 to 71. She was above a church in Egypt, and it's a woman of light. And there's nothing to even say it's Mary. It's a woman. It's a divine woman of light, divine mother. And there are photos and video of it, like, all over the internet. Just, like, look it up and have a look at how much manifestation the divine feminine has. The divine feminine is always manifesting.
We'll put a link down below for you guys to click on so that you can have that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, it's Carisa, beautiful. Let's see, is there anything else, like, kind of wrapping up? I mean, it feels like just like a beautiful space of embodiment and standing in your power and healing. And I think all of this is about healing, so you can be you, so you can step into
Recognize that we're symbolic beings too, that we are archetypal beings. Try to be aware of your archetypal self more. When you step in, you know, you're a lawyer and you're going into the court case, step into your archetypal self. See yourself symbolically. That's not the same person that has sex later, and that's not the same person that cuddles its children later. You know, it's like we step into these roles. These roles are archetypal forces. Yeah. Each one of us has an Artemis, an Athena. When you're in that, you know, courtroom, you're Athena. You know, when you're in the cuddling your children, maybe you're Hera, maybe you're Mary, maybe you're Hathor, you know, maybe you're Hathor in the bedroom. You know, it's like there are these different archetypes within us, and we are symbolic creatures and so oblivious to our archetypes. The archetypal self is the fourth dimension. It is the dream body, which is our astral body and fourth dimensional body. So as we evolve, if we want to evolve and increase that evolution, we need to become aware of that fourth dimensional body, which is the astral body, which is the unconscious body, which is the archetypal body. And so become aware of your symbolic. I mean, every person has a purpose, and that purpose is expressed through some archetypal forms, whether it's you're an Athena or an Artemis or a Hera or a Venus or whatever, Persephone, whoever, whatever archetypes are working through you. If you can become aware of how you express that divine feminine through yourself, that is really powerful. How does your Venus look? What kind of clothes does your Venus like to wear? Knowing your inner archetypes is a really powerful thing, so that when you go and you get dressed for your day, you dress your archetype, and you connect to it, and you see the world symbolically. Yeah. It's an archetypal world. We are archetypal creatures. So
I love that. And, thank you so much for sharing all this wealth of knowledge. I think through this, talk here today, you've mentioned a few different people that have inspired you in their works, Joseph Campbell being one of them, Debbie Ford being another.
Carolyn Mace is also
amazing. Carolyn Mace does a lot of work on archetypes. Of course, if anybody's inspired to study more of Jungian psychology or different things like that. But, and of course, Carisa does these 2 nights here at the shop. One is just for women, and the other one is a combination for women and men. They're just donation only based classes, so you can always come on down over here and get to learn more from Carisa through these classes. And of course, you can find more about Carisa at our website, liberateemporium.com. Carisa, what's your website again, where they can find some of your music and get in touch with you personally too?
My website is carisabiancamalato.com. Yeah. Okay.
So thank you again for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I love talking about this stuff, so it's always a pleasure.
Awesome. And everybody, for those that listen, please leave a review. It really helps to boost our ratings and allow for us to pop up even in search results and things like that. So leave a review so other people can find us. Once again, you can look at liberateemporium.com under the podcast section. We'll have all the podcasts there. You can also find us on iTunes at Liberate The Podcast, and also on Podbean. And so you can find us there. Thank you so much for joining us. Until next time.